All right, hello, welcome. I wanted to re-explore this 818 date, which actually would be there is an 818 coming up, a hidden 818, which is October. Oct being the word for 8, so we've got October the 18th will be coming up here shortly, and I want to just explain some of the codes in Back to the Future for the 818 destruction date of maybe the Hoover Dam. If you remember, this is the start of Back to the Future. Just dive straight into it, right? Marty's just come in the door, okay, to Doc's what workshop, his garage is what it actually is, or what became his workshop from his garage. What I want to do is get back to this point here. Sorry, I'm already waffling. So we've already looked at all these other clocks, and those clocks, I think there's a 911 one, and there's a lot of 811s in there. So we've already got some references to 8 and 1 sitting up on these other clocks, and I've gone through that in other videos. But this whole opening scene here, there's one clock, which you can see right here, which is different to the rest. Okay, this thing is sitting on its side. Now, I mean, there are some broken clocks up top and everything else, but I want to show you this. There's a code in here, and I've discussed it before in that previous video about 818, and the fact that when you are on, or at least very close to 818, you are also getting the number pi encoded in that number. Okay, so you end up with, if you went to 341, okay, you would end up with pi in this number, and I want to show you that. I've got an interactive clock up. So if we look at this, the 818, this is on 818 right now. We are also, if we were to reverse these hands, it's not exact, but it's pretty darn close, because we're just past, if we just aim this through here, we're just past this 1 minute here. So we would have to be at 3. This would be 40 minutes. Let me just turn it around so you can see what I'm talking about. What do I want to go to? Let's just do the big hand, it'll be quicker. So if we come back to 341, okay, you can see we are, the 818 is, man, it is so close. It is so close. In fact, what we have to do is we have to just move this. You can't, this is only going to a minute. If we've got to move it a half a, why does it keep going that way? Come on. We've got to move it a half a second. Yeah, so at 342, we wouldn't be at 818 anymore. You see this has moved past the 18 right here. I don't know if you follow that, but that number 818 is a reference to 341, which is of course pi, yeah, 314. I just want you to be aware of that, because that is very important with the ideas that I've been talking about. The pi that we're stuck in the American pi right now, and it's time to come out of that thing. Oh, I guess I could have moved this. Maybe I could have moved the second hand. But anyway, I've got a headache and I don't have enough patience for this right now. But 818, right, is pi, and I'm going to show you something else that's super interesting with this clock in just a minute, but I'll get to that. We'll come back to it. Hang on. So this clock is right here. Okay. Now you'll see there's something wrong with that 818. Yeah. Oh, let's just do the scene before we go on what's wrong with that clock. We'll come back to what's wrong with the clock. We've got this other clock here. I haven't really analyzed, what these numbers mean here. This could be pointing down to 29, which would be relevant. 829 would be a relevant number to be pointing at. And this, well, I don't know if that's just a, I don't know what that is, don't worry about that for right now. Don't worry about them for right now. What is interesting about this clock is the dome shape on top of this, right? So the dome represents the dam, okay? Dome, dam. The dome is the, you know, is the womb that we are in, okay? It's the upturned cup, if you like. It's the cup of Christ. It's the thing we're stuck in right now. Okay, it's silver in color as far as I can make out, or it could be gold in color. I'm not quite sure, but it would make sense if it was silver in color. And what we've got here, though, I don't know if it's supposed to be a crown. I've got an idea of having seen these clocks like on the Antique Roadshow before, but this definitely does hint at a crown here as well. So we've got this kind of corona thing, and we've got the kind of dam reference. And of course, at the dam, we've also got clocks at the Hoover Dam. Yes, we've got 2 clocks at the Hoover Dam for each side of the time change zone there. Anyway, Marty drops his skateboard on the floor, and I'm wondering if they use the skateboard because it's a reference to 8, and it also, you know, at the dam we've got those 4 inlet towers, and so right here we've got the 4 towers again, yeah, the 4 wheels, like the clock tower in Back to the Future has the 4 pillars, and that's all to do with the balance of reality, those 4 pillars. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, what happens is Marty drops this skateboard on the floor, and then he kicks it over, and as it rolls over, it rolls past that clock, and it hits into the nuclear element, the plutonium, right? So I let you put 2 and 2 together with what I'm saying here, with the plutonium and the what I would look as a corona and a dam reference here, the dome. What do I want to say? What do I want to say now? I want to come back to this clock because this is really interesting. What's wrong with this clock? If you notice the hour hand here, this hour hand is way too far this way, right? For 8:18. You know, if the minute hand's here, which it appears to be at 18, right? At least from the angle we're looking at, that would probably be 18, right? The hour hand should be coming more down like this, if you can see my cursor. Yeah? It should not even be quite a third of the way between 8 and 9 here. So this thing's way out of whack. And it was bugging me a little bit, actually. Why is that out of whack? Well, I brought that interactive clock up. Right, let's just look at this. I brought that interactive clock up, and I just happened to, don't ask me how I come up with this stuff, but I just happened to move this on from the 8:18. I just happened to move the minute hand on to the 10. Right, I was just actually seeing what that was going to point to. Why, you know, I don't know what's up with this. Come on. And lo and behold, the hour hand now is pointing exactly where the hour hand would be pointing if this minute hand was now on the 10. So what we've got is we've got a reference. I mean, you just can't write this stuff, I'm telling you. You know, this makes the 10/18 date look even hotter. And what's interesting about this as well is just look at these 2 cans that are up here. It's almost like it's made to look like an alarm clock a little bit. Yeah, with these look like 2 bells up here. But yeah, if we move this minute hand around to the 10 here, this is where the hour hand would be pointing. So we've got this 10 reference as well as the 8:18 reference, right? So that to me, it's like it's an encoded 10:18 right there on that clock. I don't know. You can make your own mind up. Maybe I'm reaching too much as usual, but the more I look at these dates, and the more I look at that chart of that I've been going through, you know, just some very unusual stuff is starting to pop out, you know. Anyway, that's there. The skateboard is going past the dome and corona, and it's going to the plutonium. You figure the rest out with what I'm saying. What is interesting is what I want to do now is I want to just go over the little I'm going to go to the table that I have. If you're not familiar with this, if you're brand new, there's a chance that every once in a while, you know, somebody will come across one of my videos and will watch it. If you're brand new, this is a table. You can find this set of numbers here. This is the Lucas set of numbers, and this is the Fibonacci set. And I just made this set up myself, which I called pi, and I made this set up, which I called phi. And I just start those Fibonacci on 3 and start it on 5, and you get a set of numbers. Well, from that set of numbers, you get a table. And from the table, we can put in 2 balance points for reality, right? So we've got the metaphysical right here, so the spiritual side of reality, and you'll see these numbers pop up with like the pentagram and everything, you know. These are all numbers to do with, you know, the legs 11 from where you were born from, between the 2 legs, the 2 lips. This is where you come from, right? This is why these images and symbols are important, okay? And right here, oh, and just bear in mind the 20 as well here. This is important because we are at the end of 20 years now with from the 7/11 event. And so this is what initially got me looking at this table, was the fact that this 7/11 popped up in it, right? In fact, it wasn't a table at that point, it was just a set of Lucas numbers, and I found that fascinating that 9/11 had been referred to as 7/11, right? And so we've got the 7 for September, the 11th here. Well, if we balance that date, right, of 7/11, if it's to be balanced with the physical, the 11 with the physical, then we've got to have a number that works with this 18. And the first number that you would probably, well, the only 2 numbers you could really come out with right here is a 9 or a 7. You know, if you wanted to reduce it or divide this by 2, because you've got 2 here basically. So if you, whatever, the only way of reducing this is to a 9 basically. If you look at that, you'll figure that out for yourself. The only thing you can do is reduce that to a 9. So that gives us 9/11. Okay, so 9/11 is, well, 9/11 is 9/11, isn't it? And so this table has some interesting characteristics. It's in other videos, and there's a lot of numbers here that are very interesting. But if we go back to that scene right at the start in the Doc's workshop garage, what happens at the end of this scene is he blows a speaker up. I'm sure you remember the amp scene, you know, the amp getting blown up, right? That amp corresponds to the Arecibo observatory that was demolished. That was demolished. That thing came down in 3 stages, okay? What happened was there was a couple of cable breaks, and then it finally fell down. And the number of days between those breaks were 88 days and 25 days, okay? Well, as far as I'm aware, we don't have a 25 on here. But 25 is interesting because 25 is a silver anniversary, okay? So the 25, which is also half of, let me get this straight, this is also half of the golden anniversary, which is 50 years. So we have a reference to a halfway point, and a halfway point would be a turnaround point in a cycle. Okay, when you reach that halfway point would be the turnaround point in a cycle. The other reference to a halfway point would be in a circle. As I've just mentioned, this whole thing references pi quite heavily, and that 818 references these numbers here, the pi, right? So in a cycle, a turnaround point, right, would be 180 degrees, right? So here is your 180, right? The 180 as well, let's not forget 180 is 666, is 60 plus 60 plus 60, right? Which is important to note, because what we're dealing with is we're dealing with the balance of the arrow, right, which is the needle, the arrow, because all these references are taking place right now in our reality. So the arrow is man, 666, and then the beast, which is created by man, which is a fake version or an unholy version of the metaphysical realm, okay? And that system, that beast system, is also 666, right? It's the triangle or the delta, yeah? The female has the downward pointing triangle, and the male has the upward pointing triangle. I know this is probably, you know, I mean, I know people get bent out of shape about all this, these kind of things. I mean, this is probably bending people out of shape now, what I've named this, the Leviathan cross, which also shows up, excuse me, in Back to the Future, in the scene where Marty goes back to the future from the lightning strike. But I don't want to get too sidetracked. So what we're at right here with this idea of 818, right? What we have with the reference to 1018 is we've now referenced this one of these ones here and 18 here, yeah. And this, I don't know how to explain. I've explained this in other videos, but this one here is now part of one of these ones, so we can get rid of one of these ones and we can have just 118, okay? And if we look at October is would be 1018, yeah. Bloody hell, I'm losing track of where I'm going with this, but that would be 1018, yeah. So we got this 118 reference, which again is in all those clocks at the start of Back to the Future. You just have to drop that 0 out, which counts for nothing anyway. So you drop that 0 out, and you have this 118. You have this whole number referenced right in at the start of Back to the Future. And so with October the 18th, that references that set of numbers quite nicely. But what it also references is this 818. And if you look at my video on 818, August the 18th has a ton of these. You can take some of these numbers here and you can get to other significant dates, you know, when events have happened during the year, by subtracting certain numbers or certain combinations of these numbers from, when I say combinations, I mean just reversing them, from the dates that are contained within here. There's 2 or 3 different dates within this, you know, collection of numbers right here. But this 818 shows up in a number of other films. I've discussed it, and it shows up in like Clock Faces. It's in Thomas Crown. That was one, and Thomas Crown's quite significant because there's quite a lot of little references in the new version of Thomas Crown. Probably a video I should do for another day. And what was it in Final Countdown? I'm sure it's in a bunch of other places. Where else did I come across 818 in the 818 in just go watch the video. Vanilla Ice has this number cropping up in his video for Ice Ice Baby, and that's really what's happening. Is this is about the rebirth of the system. So when we do that 180-degree flip, yeah, it's a paradigm shift, yeah. So the dartboard's heavily referenced in a lot of films. It tends to be on the walls in the background. You know, it's in Back to the Future, War Games. That dartboard, you know, 180 is the top score, and the top score is the, you know, would be our paradigm shift, yeah. And don't forget that the bullseye is the 50 that is in the middle, yeah, that's gold, and the thing that surrounds the bullseye is the 25, which is the womb, yeah. It's an O, yeah. That's the hole that we're in right now. We're in a hole, and we need to come out of there. Okay, you know, the metaphors are all there, but anyway, let's get to the point, Dan. We've got a set of numbers here that we can also balance, right? So we can balance across this set of numbers. So if we're going to call this now October, like we called this September, and we called this September, if we're going to call this one October, okay, and August the 18th does link to October the 18th, not just with the numbers, but there's some other numbers in here that link the two as well. But if this is going to be August the 18th, what we have here would be 9/23, right? This would be 9/23. If this was 9/11 here, then this 9 goes with the 23, so this would be 9/23 here, and then so we need to jump to this 8, which is we're going to call a 10 in the way we're working it out. We're going to call this 8, like we called this 7 September as well. We're going to call this 8 October. So if we go from the 23rd of September now, I hope you're following this. If we go from the 23rd of September, where do I have this written down at? So if we go from the 23rd of September, which is these two dates here, or two dates, this date here, and we want to go to October, right, the 18th, how do we get there? Well, we need to add on, do this right this time, we need to add on some numbers. So let's go to day counter. I don't want that one. Let's go to this day counter. Well, I've put it in here. The 23rd of September, we want to add on 25 days to get to October the 18th. Now, why is this 25 significant? So as I was just saying, this scene runs into the next scene where Marty blows the amp up, right? And I said that's the Arecibo observatory that gets demoed. And there is 88 and a 25 number reference built into the Arecibo destruction date, right? So we have that 25 days built in. Well, interestingly enough, after Marty's just blown up the amp, Doc gets on the phone rings, and Marty answers the phone, and Doc basically says, oh, you know, all the clocks go off, and he basically says, oh, my experiment worked, all my clocks are 25 minutes late. 25 minutes late. Why they would put that in the film, who knows, but it's just funny, isn't it, how the Arecibo had that 25 built into it, and how the Arecibo looks a lot like that speaker that gets blown up, the amp. In fact, I've said before, the Arecibo is actually an amplifier. Okay, it's just amplifying from the other direction, sound, or, you know, electromagnetic waves coming into it rather than coming out of it. So it's very interesting, all these references right here at the start of Back to the Future, in the opening scene. Everything's right here. Now, what else did I want to point out about Back to the Future? Oh, when he exits here, I don't have this up, I'll have to get a clip of it, but he goes out the door and he goes across a little bit of a parking lot bit, and right next door is Burger King, right? And of course, Burger King is the Whopper, yeah. And if you look at the word Whopper and Hoover, very similar, in the way, um, like they're kind of a like Hoover and Whop. The start of Whopper is a who, if you're getting this, and we've got the double P instead um, we've got a V in the Hoover, but it's super interesting. Phonetically, very similar, kind of similar looking words. I just thought it was interesting, and of course the beef. The beef is the cow that we're all stuck in. Yeah, this is why the moon's made of cheese. This is why it's called the moon. Moo, moon. Yeah, do you get all these little things? you know. That's why milk is white. I mean, I don't know what to say about it really. Subtle, very subtle hints to everything. The metaphors in reality, very subtle. Okay, but you are very subtle and very obvious. Uh, Sometimes not obvious until you think about it. Anyway, I think that's about it on this stuff. We covered the clock. Super interesting there. I want to just show you this, because I thought, well, I'll just slip between Julian and Gregorian calendars with that date. So if we put August the 18th in, which would be the original 8/8, yeah. And in fact, if you think about it, the 88, this number, I mean, we can just look at the symbolism of the number 818. Yeah, the 1 coming from between the 8. Okay. I'll just leave it at that for now, because that's actually really that's a whole video's worth of stuff, looking at how the number 1 and the number 8 interact if you can understand the physics. I'd say the physics. If you can understand the nature of the way reality works, the number 1 and the number 8 are hugely significant in the structure of reality. I'll leave it at that. That is a job for. I mean, if you want to find more out about that sort of stuff, you want to be looking at like, okay, fractal woman. That's good. Theory of apophasis, or however you say that, with Ken Wheeler. That's another good channel to watch, and you'll start getting, learning about the nature of reality, and learning about, seeing all the metaphors in reality. It kind of explains to you that this place is not a just by chance place. This place has a hell of a lot of thought put into it. A hell of a lot of thought. This is not just random. Let's put it that way. So anyway, I'm rambling. August 18th I put in. Well, this is interesting. I just put it in this way around. The other way around, you get the 5th of August, and you get the 5th of October. When I put October in here in a minute, you'll see. But August the 18th this way around goes to the 31st. Now, what have we just gone, what's just gone on in the news about the 31st? Significant day, because they've just referenced coming out of Afghanistan, right? I can't really think of anything that's majorly metaphoric off the top of my head to do with Afghanistan, but the fact that we've come out of that, that so-called war or conflict, or whatever the hell's going on over there, but there's a reference back to Space Odyssey, yeah. So if you look at the original, of course, the Space Odyssey gets its name from the Odyssey, which is Odysseus's traveling back from. So Odysseus is away for 20 years. Okay, so we've got the 20 years just up on Afghanistan, right? And he's away fighting in the Trojan War. I believe it was the Trojan War, and does that for 10 years, and then comes back. I'm sure there's probably a point in this in the Afghan war that I'm sure they reference the halfway point probably with something, but so we've got that home, and Odysseus returns. He does the voyage, the Odyssey, for 10 years to get back home. Okay, and that's what we're talking about with this whole flip on the system, the whole paradigm shift now, doing a 180. We're talking about returning home. Yeah, literally near enough every film. It's that's the story, right? That is the story. Coming out of the system, yeah, returning home, returning back to balance. I mean, any of the major, but I mean, I was just watching Terminator the other day. Terminator, that's all about that. What other film did I watch? I don't know, I can't remember. But anyway, so all these major films, you know, they're all about returning home, coming out of that system, right? And so we've got this 31st, which is the return date for the soldiers in Afghanistan, yeah, returning home. Odysseus coming home. I don't know if there are any David references or any Bowman references, but that's the kind of thing you would see in the news. If they were going to talk about a certain soldier, it'd probably be a David with a man in the name, or that kind of thing. And interestingly enough, the 31st of August is also Diana's death date. Okay, I was wondering how this could possibly fit into the whole story, and this could possibly be it. Yeah, so we've got this 31st of August, which is Diana's death date, and this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the fictional moon goddess Diana. We're talking about coming out of that system. Yeah, that system has now corrupted. Yeah, it's become the old crony. It's become the crow, the black pearl, right? And so when you're on the black pearl, well, what were they? They were dead to begin with, weren't they? They were ghosts. So that's what you are when you're on the black pearl. So you've got to come out of that system. We've got to come out of that system. And so this is a reference to this. So then, of course, if we put the October 18th in, of course, if we put it the other way around, we go back to the 5th of October, which is, again, it's an 885 reference. I've talked about the 5th before maybe being a possible date, just because it's 85, which balances both those two numbers. Yeah, it balances the 55 and the 88. So that's interesting that is referenced. And again, the 31st of October, All Hallows Eve, yeah, Halloween, yeah. So All Saints Day, the saint being born. This is the day before. This would be the day of the thing that we're stuck in, yeah. The Eve, yeah. This is the Eve. This is Halloween, All Hallows Eve, yeah. And this is what we're stuck in, Eve. The same as the moon, the same as Venus, the same as all of this stuff. Just slight variations depending on what stage of the how old the matrix is, basically. So I thought that was interesting as well. So we've got that reference point there. Halloween was referenced in Donnie Darko, just off the top of my head, thinking about it. And that's all I want to say about this, really. I don't know. They've, just looking down here, look, the start of the Julian year is the 25th. When's Christ born? The 25th. How many days late does Doc say his clocks are? 25. Okay, and we are 25 days from what would be 9/23. Okay, so I think I want to leave it at that because there's another little one I want to do on this chart. It's another really interesting little thing, but I'll save that for the next video, so stay tuned. And that's it. Okay, hope you enjoyed. Cheers. Right, bye.